Beyond Cinema studio here at TIFF, sponsored by CELEBS.com. Jorge Hinojosa, Ice-T, congratulations on Iceberg Slim, Portrait of a Pimp. Did either of you guys ever get to meet him before he died?
I got to talk to him on the phone. I never got a chance to meet him in person. But Fab Five Freddy was interviewing him one time, and I got on the phone with Iceberg, and I told him, I named myself after you, and he said I couldn't think of anybody better. So that was the, all I needed, to continue to run with it. But nah, never in person.
Did you address him as Iceberg, or did you address him as Mr. Beck, or like?
Nah, I addressed him as Iceberg. It was one of those moments. At that time, that's the name he used, and that's what he was rolling with. But, it was a cool thing because I based my career behind him. I named myself after him. I got turned out on Iceberg Slim books when I was in high school. I was about 16 years old.
This is a guy whose life, there couldn't be a better or more colorful life to kind of tell him to turn into a story, whether on film or elsewhere. But is it one of those lives that's like so amazing in terms of its scope and what he did and all the things he did, that it's like people have trouble believing that he just accomplished that much, had those different personas?
Absolutely. He ran the gauntlet. The fact that he survived growing up in, one of the racist cities in America, that was one of the most corrupt cities in America, that in itself is a miracle. And that he survived the Watts riots as well, living with a white woman, is pretty incredible. So absolutely.
Talk about like how you got involved, George. I know you've been working with ICE for a long time now. So how did you guys even first meet?
I was an intern at a record company, and ICE came in with Africa Islam, and Africa Islam was looking for records, and this was before Run DMC had even released a record. And I met ICE, and he said he was a rapper, and I was familiar with rap, and we just started talking, and I tried to get him signed to the company that I was with there.
They tried to rip me off.
Yeah.
They were going to rip me off, and George was like, you know what? Let me take your tape around, and if I can make something happen, we could do something. So I kind of came to give it to a label. I ended up giving it to him, and then he just started hustling. He was really hustling. Like, he had a project. He wasn't a manager at the time, and he just really, really started hustling, and we've been together ever since. And when we first got together, I'm coming from a whole nother background. I'm in the streets, I'm a criminal, and trying to go straight with music. And George, coming from a whole nother world. So I gave him these Iceberg Slim books. I'm like, yo, read this, dude, just to get an understanding even what I'm saying. And he read them all, and I could see a change in his personality. He kind of got turned out.
The glossary probably helped a lot.
Yeah, well, you know what it's like? I started reading these books, and after I finished Iceberg Slim, I started reading Donald Goins, and so when anybody would address me, I would be like thinking, what would Iceberg Slim say right now? And I was like, at that point, I was like, you know what, I need to step away from these books and kind of regain my own personality back, because I'm not a 50-year-old pimp. I don't carry a gun, and I don't have a bunch of hoes. I'm fresh out of prep school, and I need to stay in my lane because I could get hurt.
Yeah. You're like 19 years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like about Iceberg as well, is it's like people read these books and they start hustling and thinking that they're smooth, and he's like, he doesn't want that to be the impression that he leaves with.
Well, he was out of the game when he started writing books. At the time he was writing books, he was an exterminator. And these are things that people confuse with my music. I didn't start making records till I was out of the game. I was talking about what I had done prior. So a lot of people will take my music and they'll say, well, Ice, you're promoting it. I'm like, really, I'm warning against it. You have to listen, really, because most of my records, I end up dead, I end up in prison. So lots of eerie parallels in our lives.
Yeah, and I like that he said that too. It's like the origin of him writing was really when he wrote that plea in prison. Mm-hmm. So it's like without prison, he wouldn't have had that opportunity, and who knows if he ever would have had the time or had the mental space to sit down and do something creative.
Well, no, even more of a jewel is that his wife wrote the books. Even today with my wife, I sit up and I'm telling her adventures that I lived through. I'm on Law and Order now, but I had 15 years in the game. And so I'm telling her about this and that. And she's like, nah, it really didn't happen. I'm like, call Rich. Rich is like, yeah, Ice did that, you know. And it's so outrageous. And I can see Coco saying, let me write this down. So I can see how the birth of it. Because to you, it's not a story that anybody would want to hear. It's just your life. And she's like, well, this is entertaining to me. This will be entertaining to millions of people.
Was there ever a time though when you were like, you know, I'm gonna better hold that back because I don't want to scare her at all?
You have to, like he said when his mother said, tell her, he said, I'll tell you in time. So you got to know when to ease it in. And there are still stories that I haven't told my wife, you know, because some of the stuff is pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, you're living two different lives. And I got to believe there's a lot of stories she hasn't told me, and I don't want to hear them.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Right. That's also like, I mean, obviously you're doing Law and Order. I mean, and you're dealing with, you know, SVU and rape crimes and all this sort of stuff. Is it kind of ironic that now, like, that this film is about this guy who you know was a pimp and a pimp that was thought of as being super fly at the time.
Yeah.
You know? So do you find an irony in that sort of?
Oh yeah, well, life is irony. You know, a lot of times, you know, even in his life, you know, being a pimp and then you have three daughters. That's just what it is. I mean, who would have thought I'd actually be paying a cop? But then you guys are in the film business, and if you're a casting director, if you cast a street cat as a street cat, that's not much acting. If you cast a street cat as a school teacher, you get a school teacher with a very interesting dynamic. So casting me as a cop, you get a cop with an interesting dynamic, almost a criminal dynamic, and it works. Also, if you play the cop, you get to come back in the next episode. So,
right.
So, you know, my thing is that Iceberg's life, he went from writer, he was getting into film. So this same curve of life is happening to me in another way. So this film is really, and I did honestly, when George started to do the movie, I didn't know all these facts about the man. I knew the books as well as I could. I knew the record, but I didn't know all the facts of the man. And that's what George brought to the screen.
Well, it's interesting also the way that the man defined himself, because obviously at one time he was a pimp, at one time he really kind of embraced the fact that he was an author, and then like as a dad and all that sort of stuff, and he struggles with that. I mean, so many careers bundled into one person, you know. Do you have something that you define yourself by? If you sit on a plane and there is somehow someone who doesn't know what you do, and they asked you what you do, what would you tell them? Do you tell them?
I would say I'm an artist.
Okay.
And I was even an artist in crime. You know, con artist, you know, bank robbery. It's all art. You have to be creative. So I'm a creative person, and I'll always borderline inventor. You know, but I'm an artist.
And what was it like working with Snoop for both of you? I know you did Urban Menace with him, The Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
You guys have been kind of teammates through this process. So bringing him in here as well, you know, what's it like having the opportunity to work together?
Well, the beautiful thing about me is having so many great friends throughout the years, whether it's Snoop, Quincy Jones, people like that, and having friends that if you call, they'll come. You know, so we made a call to Snoop, and he shows up. You know, he doesn't do that for everybody, but in the same sense, if Snoop calls me, I show up. So it's friendship beyond the business persona y'all see. And when we did The Art of Rap, we were able to call just friends up and make a movie. Yeah. So, you know, Snoop is a genuine guy who I met when he was first starting out in the record business. George actually was the musical director on Deep Cover. And we actually heard Snoop's first record.
Yeah.
You know, we heard the Deep Cover record, and I said, this dude is unique. So there's a love between us, and he's a great cat, and, you know, he's delved into the game and runs with Archbishop Magic Wand, so he was perfect for the, you know, commentary.
Yeah, George, does that make it easier for you as well, pulling a film like this together? Is that, I mean, you've got music, you know, like a DJ Shadow and Ghetto Boys and Sly Boogie and stuff like that. Does it help you get licensing rights and things like that for the movie by saying, oh, you know, Ice wants this in the film?
Yeah. That's basically the Magic Kingdom card. You go in and you just like say, you start every sentence with, This is Ice-T's manager, George, and everybody said, "Oh, what?" So we're doing this movie, and Ice wants you to be in it. I want you to be in it. Can we interview you? Can I interview you? It's like, sure, no problem. You know, he brings so much authenticity and integrity that they know they're going to step into something that's going to be handled correctly, and that it's going to be something that's going to be awesome and fantastic.
And I think also we're not known for doing a bunch of silly shit. You know, I think people know, okay, I saw that last piece, I seen this, I see what Ice is doing, I need to be involved in that. Like when we did our last film, the biggest diss was not being in it. You know, Busta Rhymes saw the movie and says, I'm buried in regret. You called me, man, and I was busy. So people don't want to miss the next boat that's going out. So I think when you lay out a lot of work, it's like, you know, I'm not Spielberg, but when he calls, you know this is a real call. This is Spielberg. It's going to be something. So I'm like, but in hip hop, it's like if Ice calls you, if Russell calls you, it's something serious. I should answer that call. And then it's our job to make them glad, make them proud of whatever we involved them in.
And I think you do that in such a good way, not by just having you guys in it, but by bringing in like those literature professors and other guys, and
Henry Rollins,
and Quincy Jones, of course, as well. Just like you know, you've just got people all over the spectrum commenting on this guy. It really gives you a round picture.
Do you know the connection with Henry Rollins and Iceberg Slim? Build on.
Iceberg Slim did a spoken word record, and Henry Rollins had a reissue label, and he and Rick Rubin reissued that record.
So he knows about Iceberg.
All the people that were in the movie were connected to Iceberg in some kind of way. You know, Bill Duke was attached to direct Iceberg Slim's life. Quincy had the movie rights. You know, so all of these people were not arbitrary. They all have real connections to Iceberg, so that's why they were chosen.
Yeah, and just an amazing lineup. So you know, we just want to thank you again for coming by, spending a few minutes with us. We really appreciate it, man.